At 18 years old, a young songbird up in New York City hands a little old demo tape to the biggest shot in the music business and finds out the hard way that success can feel a whole lot like a locked door. Her voice just soars right on up to number 1. Is greater than, is greater than. Her whole world gets shrunk down to one house with cameras, guards, and a mess of rules she never did agree to. Her friends get looked over. Phone calls are whispered in a closet. A late-night intercom buzzes asking where she is and what for. This here is Mariah Carey 'fore she earned her wings. A young gal with a 5-octave range is greater than a gal of mixed kin who grew up sidestepping ugliness. Now learnin' that fame can follow you from the stage clean into the kitchen. The man who promised her the moon starts to manage every dang breath. He says what to wear, what to sing, and who to put her trust in. I didn't feel like I could just plant my boots and pitch a hissy fit and say, well, now I want this song to get out there, or I want this kind of video, or I ain't fixin' to wear my hair all curly tonight, or I don't wanna wear some dress down to the floor and buttoned up to the neck. Y'all know what I mean? It was kinda like, I would fight some, but I'd always just give in. 'Cause it was easier than just having a constance crêpe. Is greater than, is greater than. She learned to flash a smile on command. Then she learned to hide a getaway plan right out in the open. This here story follows the trail of the cage and the key. That big ol' house they called Sing Sing. The songs that fought back. The love that lit a fire of courage. The whole glittery mess fallen apart. And the comeback that rewrote the whole dang book. The settin' free of Mimi. This is what freedom sounds like now. Born on March the 27th, 1969 in Huntington, New York, to a black Venezuelan daddy and an Irish-American mama. Her mixed family had to put up with folks being so ugly that the neighbors went and poisoned their dog and set the family car on fire. Is greater than, well, my brother and sister, seeing as how they're older. They kinda grew up, more in the 70s and late 60s. They had a whole heap of bad things happen. People blew up their cars and killed there, poisoned their dogs and junk like that. They had is greater than after her folks split up when she was just 3. She found solace in her singing. She mimicked her mama's opera exercises, shined brighter than a new penny in arts classes, and by high school was already writing her own songs. I auditioned by singing one of the tunes they wrote, and they hired me right then and there. So, them shady fellas started paying me to sing on their demos. Is greater than, while all the other kids were sitting in homeroom, Mariah was out there cutting class to lay down some demo tapes. As a singer for hire. Is greater than. Well, howdy, Mariah. Is greater than. Why, thank you kindly. Is greater than, back again. Sure is good to see ya here. Is greater than. Now, when I was going to this here school, I was on the honor roll. I reckon which roll I. Is greater than. Right after she got her diploma, she up and moved to the big city, New York City, working all kinds of jobs while she was chasing a dream that seemed a country mile away. Is greater than, did you ever lose faith that things were gonna work out for you? Is greater than, nope, I just always believed deep down that it would happen, 'cause that's the only way to, make your dreams real. Is greater than. Her big break came by way of Brenda K. Starr, a freestyle singer who took little Mariah around to all them fancy industry shindigs and sure talked up her voice. Do you remember the first time I came to the tryout? Is greater than, I asked you, what in the world are you doing? You said. You were real quiet. You just plain excluded yourself from everybody, and you were like, I'm listening to my tape. Is greater than, yep, is greater than. And I said, what tape? You said, oh, just a couple of demos that I cut. I'm trying to get myself a record deal. And I was like, well, can I have a listen? And I listened, and I tell you what looked at you, and I was like, why in the world are you singing back up for me? And you were like, well now, 'cause you know, I gotta pay my bills. And I was like, you ought to be a huge star. At this one December 1988 party, an 18-year-old Mariah clutched her demo tape while Tommy Mottola, the 40-year-old head honcho of Sony's Columbia Records, stood clear across the room. The handoff didn't take but a second. Mottola pocketed that tape and lit out for his limousine. In the car, a legend has it he pressed play, heard that voice, and told his driver to turn this thing around. But Mariah, she'd already slipped right on into the night. What came next was a frantic 2-week search through all the industry contacts. When Mottola finally ran her down, he signed her to Columbia in a big ol' bidding war and positioned her as the label's top priority. Is greater than, all right then. So, when I got signed, we all know I was awful young and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know a blessed thing about the music business at all, except that I wanted to be a part of it something fierce. Is greater than. What came next felt like a dead run. Is studios, photo shoots, and rehearsals filled up every single day. She learned the ropes of promotion and the hard grind of getting perfect takes. Her world just got big in a hurry, but the circle of folks round her got a whole lot smaller down to just the ones running the show. And I tell you what the results were right quick. Her first 5 singles with 4 of them, coming off that first album, and the main tune from the second one, Vision of Love. Love. Takes time someday I don't want to. Cry and Emotions, every last one of them hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Why all the critics started comparing her to the likes of Whitney Houston and Aretha Franklin. Next thing you know, the Grammy Awards came calling. That gal who used to just sing demos was now a full-blown star. But behind all that success, there was a real crooked balance of power. Mottola, he was 21 years older than her, and the prize in Anadia, big honcho of her label, and he started coming round, right after the ink on her contract was barely dry. She was just a kid and brand new to the whole business. He was a sharp-dressed executive who held all the keys to her career. At first, she saw him as a protector, but he just saw a little protege he could shape and mold. Well, after a few years of them courting, Mariah went and married Tommy Mottola on June the 5th back in 1993. And the wedding was a $500,000 to do over at St. Thomas Church up in New 80s, York City, with big shots like Barbara Streisand, Billy, Joel, Ozzy Osbourne, Bruce Springsteen, and Robert De Niro, who was standing right there as Tommy's best man. All the cameras were just eating up that whole fairy tale spectacle. Mariah said later on she was hoping that marriage might ease up on his control, but instead it just laid the trap. They up and moved into a big old custom-built house on a 51-acre spread out in Bedford, New York. Dead set on keeping some of her own independence, Mariah pitched in on building that spread, a promise she made herself from. Watching her own mama get run off from some fella's place. Ain't no man ever gonna do that to me, she swore to herself. Well, the irony hit fast. She took to calling that whole spread Sing Sing after that New York prison, 'cause that's just what it felt like. That house was run more like a surveillance compound. Cameras that caught every little move were watching the rooms. Armed guards walked the grounds at all hours of the day and night. On paper, this was all for security. In truth, it was all about control. Mariah couldn't step a foot off the place without Tommy's say-so. Not for a quick bite, not to see her friends, not to run her errands. To make a call in private, she'd hide herself away in her shoe closet, far from the prying eyes of them cameras. An intercom would carry his voice clean through the whole mansion at any hour, demanding to know where she was and what in the world she was doing. Her days were all laid out for her. The rooms felt watched, even when they were empty. Doors weren't just for walking through, They were something you had to get clearance for. The silence itself had rules that nobody had to speak out loud. The message was always the same: be seen when you're told to be, and stay unseen the rest of the time, told. Folks who came to visit could feel how tight things were. One time while they were working, Mariah and this rapper fella named Dat snuck on out to get some Burger King. Well, when Tommy found out she'd left the grounds, he plumb lost his mind. He sent the guards out after him. The help was running all through the house like somebody'd busted out of jail. Dat just stared, like he couldn't believe his own eyes, and said, "Now if a gal can't be free to go to Burger King when she takes a notion, she ain't got nothing. You need to get yourself on out of here." And them words, they hit home. Mariah was living on pins and needles, never knowing what little thing might set him off. Even the smallest joys were a big ol' risk. A joke at the wrong time, coming home a tad late from the studio, a phone that rang for too long. Any little spark could light his fuse. She learned to plan simple outings like they were military missions, but then she'd find out that even those could be called off without so much as a word. That control bled right into the music. From the very start, Tommy pushed a real polished pop image aimed at the biggest, whitest crowd he could find. Mariah's own gut feeling, coming from R&B and hip-hop, went against that plan something fierce. From the moment Tommy signed me, he tried his best to wash the city right out of me, she said down the road. Songs were smoothed out to fit that adult contemporary radio. Even the way she dressed was watched like a hawk. He discouraged, pressing out them natural curls of hers on account of, he reckoned it made her look a little too big city. All folks saw was some straight-laced gal singing ballads. The picture-perfect pop princess. A real looker, proper and quiet as a church mouse. Back at the house, though, things were getting tighter than a new pair of boots. At a supper, some bigwig from Sony up and asked her what she reckoned about that fella Sean Puffy Combs. Mariah went on about how he was the next big thing, and Tommy just blew his top, slammed his fist on the table, and hollered out that Thanksgiving was plumb canceled. Later on, he sneered at her, saying, "Puffy will be shining my boots in 2 short years." She didn't speak up for herself much, 'cause crossing him just made him madder than a hornet. To snuff out a sound is to snuff out a soul. The narrower the path they put you on, the smaller your life gets. Mariah kept on writing just to hang on to who she was, and she'd sing just to get some breathing room in that tight old spot. Them songs turned into the one place where she could put up a fight without ever raising her voice. Come 1995, she started pushing back in the music itself. She dug her heels in for a fantasy remix with that old dirty bastard fella. Old Tommy finally gave in. Though he was sour about it, that record turned into a monster crossover hit. A real game-changer mixing pop and hip-hop together. But still, he warned her she was getting too city again. The way he wore her down emotionally was just as bad as the fights over her music. When her hair and makeup folks put together a scrapbook full of fan letters and notes from famous folks. Even had one in there from that young buck, Joey Lawrence. Well, Tommy got his hands on it and ripped it to shreds, and went and burned it right there in the fireplace before she ever laid eyes on it. That fear could turn ugly in a heartbeat, physical in an instant. As that marriage started coming apart at the seams, Tommy and a couple of his buddies backed Mariah into a corner right at the supper table. He grabbed himself a butter knife, pressed the flat side of it to her cheek, and just drug it all the way down her throat. He didn't break the skin, mind you. He didn't have to. The look in his eye said it all. She just sat there still as a stone while them other fellas just watched. That was the last show with her, as the main attraction at that place they called Sing Sing. After that whole ordeal, she knew clear as day what was on the line. If she stayed put, them walls were gonna close in on her for good. If she lit out, the fight was just gonna move to a different arena. We're talking contracts, the radio stations, and the music charts. One way or another, that choice was gonna be the story of her life. By 1996, walking on eggshells was more like trying to cross a minefield. Some head shrinker. Dunn told Tommy that his tight grip was gonna cost him, his wife. So he let her go take some actin' classes. Well, Mariah took that little bit of leeway and cooked up a whole plan. She went and rented a secret little apartment right next door to her actin' coach. After her lessons, she'd just say she was too tuckered out to make the drive home and that she was gonna stay with her teacher, but then she'd sneak on over to her own place, a little breathe-in room. Her first quiet nights without all them cameras, bodyguards, or them squawk boxes. For that last little stretch, they struck up a cold-hearted deal, showing up together for the crowds, but going their own ways back at the house. During this here tense standoff, Mariah ran into that fella Derek Jeter at one of them highfalutin Armani parties late, in 1996. Now they were both of mixed blood, and both of them understood being watched all the time. She said later it was the whole idea of him, of being free, of a regular life that just pulled her in. Their quiet little romance gave her the backbone she needed. He was only the second man she had ever been that close with. As the whispers got around and old Tommy's fuse got shorter, she knew she had to get gone. That business at the dinner table with the knife made the decision for her, plain as day. Mariah got herself a new lawyer and planned her getaway. She lit out for the Dominican Republic, where a divorce you both agree on could be done and dusted in a matter of days. By early 1997, she had wrangled free from his personal grip. Come March of 1998, the whole divorce was made official. Now on the business side, he was still running the show over at Sony. As her deal got close to its end, she put the squeeze on the Sony bigwigs for more say in her own work and made it plenty clear she wouldn't re-up so long as Mottola was still calling the shots. In them days, the winds blew soft for a spell, a key from the superintendent, a bag packed up for the night, a number she knew by heart in case a call couldn't get made from the house. Every little thing she did made the next thing possible. Freedom came out in her music. In September 1997, Mariah put out that album, Butterfly. And that title, it said it all, is greater than. She finally got to embrace that hip-hop and R&B producers she'd been wanting to work with, including Sean Combs and Missy Elliott. The sound of it was warmer, more rhythmic. It was just more her. Her whole look followed suit. Sensual, confident, and calling her own shots. Best of all, the songs came out without all that old meddlin'. It's been a slow and steady process of taking the reins of her own creativity, she told the reporters. On Butterfly, the words she wrote were all about independence, a whole lot of longin' and letting go. The music left plenty of room for her to breathe, for ad-libs, and some real grit. The records felt like they'd been lived in. You could hear a person stepping out into the light and learning how to stay there. Honey became her 12th number one, but that video for it made an even bigger statement. Mariah plays a secret agent held captive in a big ol' mansion. She outsmarts the folks holding her captive, dives in a pool, and swims her way to freedom. The whole place looked a whole lot like the Bedford estate. The shots through the shadows of the stair railing made it look like prison bars. Both Honey and that their Butterfly video showed her bustin' loose from them grand ol' houses. She was telling folks that the cage door had swung open and she was long gone. Fans took them videos like they were messages from on high. They'd stop on a single frame, name all the little signs, and just holler and cheer for her escape. Her work made the whole private mess plain as day without any need. For a big city press conference, Butterfly shot straight to number one, and folks praised it as the high water mark of her whole catalog. Fans and critics finally heard an artist lay claim to her own voice, right out in the open. In a strange little side note, after she packed up and sold that Bedford property, the empty mansion burned plumb to the ground in 1999 on account of some bad wiring. The meaning of it all was hard to miss. That chapter closed with nothing but ash. Where a golden gate had stood, the next fight was already waitin' in the studios, on them release calendars, and in the boardrooms, with her Columbia. Contract all done and dusted in 1999, Mariah flew, clear of Sony and Tommy's whole orbit. In 2001, she signed a record-breaking $100 million multi-album deal with Virgin Records. The first project was a mighty ambitious one, a picture show, and a soundtrack they called Glitter, set back in the 1980s club scene. It was a chance to show off her roots and try her hand at acting on a bigger stage. Instead, it turned into the perfect storm of her career. Mariah later told the story of how plans from, well, it sure looked like Glitter's sparkle started showing up on a rival's project. A little shindig over at Sony, the biggest, ugliest example of it all, was all about her tune, Loverboy. She'd gone and got the go-ahead for a little piece of that yellow magic orchestra song, called Firecracker. Next thing you know, Sony went and wrangled up the very same piece of music and some other fella's record. Using it beat hers to the punch. So she had to go and rework that whole Loverboy song at the 11th hour with a whole different snippet from that cameo tune, Candy. A duet idea she had with Ja Rule popped up. Somewhere else, too. The papers, they tried to paint it as a catfight between two big-haired divas, but the real story down in the dirt was an ugly grudge held by some suit-wearing boss that played out in the calendar for when songs hit the airwaves and who got the studio time. Being the boss of her own music had been snatched right out of her house and put on the record label's checkerboard. All them meetings, phone calls, and whispers in the hallway decided how things would shake out long before a single note was ever played for the folks, and the price she paid for all that mess was counted up in wasted time, a stalled engine, and a story that got knocked clean off its trail. All the while, the heap of work was just burying her alive. She was in front of the cameras from sunup to sundown, and in the studio from sundown to sunup, pulling 20-hour days back to back without a lick of sleep. In July of 2001, she showed up on MTV's Total Request Live, wheeling out an ice cream cart, right onto the stage and jawing in a way that just plain left folks at home scratching their heads. Later on, she swore up and down it was a little joke that fell flatter than a pancake, not her coming unglued. Weren't but a few days later, she went and put up some worried sound and voice. Put some words on the internet, then yanked 'em right down. Come late July, she was laid up in the hospital for being plumb worn out, tuckered out. Her being tired turned into a whole dang public show. Circus. Every little shrug for the cameras looked like some kind of sign, like she was sending a message. Every time she went quiet, the rumors started flying. Tail. The heat to always be on stage ran smack into a person's need to just take a breather, and the whole mess played out right there for millions of folks to watch. The timing on that glitter business turned plumb tragic. The soundtrack hit the shelves on September 11th, 2001, and the movie came out right in the middle of that awful shock that had a hold on the whole dang country. The reviews were just plain cruel, and promoting it was a lost cause, and the sales just hit rock bottom. Early on in 2002, them folks at Virgin paid her off to tear up her contract. $50 million, they say, just so they could go their separate ways. The headlines all laughed and called her a washed-up mess. So she lit out for Capri to rest up and figure out her next move. Her plan. All by her lonesome, she started mapping out what had gone right and what had been a complete disaster. She made a list of who paid her any mind when she talked and who didn't. A smaller deal with the right kind of folks. Started seeming like a smart move forward instead of some kind of step backward. Come late 2002, Mariah went and signed a deal with Island, divided by Def Jam, and started up her own brand they called Monarch Entertainment. Now, it wasn't near as big an operation, but what she got in return was being the one in charge. She took it slow getting back in the game with that Charm Bracelet record. It wasn't no runaway hit, but it sure proved she still had the grit. Still hit home. This here rebuild was gonna take a whole mess of patience. She cut all the outside racket from the whole process and kept her circle tight. She'd seen the dark side of fame and wanted no part of it. The studio sessions felt a sight calmer. The aim was steady. Just write the best danged song today, then do it all over again tomorrow. All through 2004, she cooked up a brand new sound with producers who flat out trusted her gut, especially that fella Jermaine Dupri. The goal was plain as day blendin'. That hip-hop swagger she purely loved with the melodies that made her a household name. The first, single off the next record it's like. That kinda nudged the radio door back open. The second one blew that door clean off its hinges. We Belong Together became the heart and soul of the Emancipation of Mimi. It mixed that modern R&B sound with one of her most soul-stirring melodies. That song just owned the radio and the charts sitting pretty at #1 for 14 whole weeks, and later on getting named Billboard's Song of the Whole Dang Decade for the 2000s. Folks listening heard the pure power of a voice that had fought tooth and nail to break free and found its own path again. As that record shot up the charts, the whole story changed. What was once a tale about the dark side of fashion turned into a real testament. The very same press that had counted her out now kept score of every new milestone she hit. The Emancipation of Mimi sold over 10 million copies, a comeback bigger than any of them 90-second supermodels ever managed. All across the whole dang world, putting her right back on her throne. Them folks doing the judging, who'd been mighty skeptical, started singing her praises. How big a deal this comeback truly was. She went and wrangled herself 3 of them Grammy Awards and a whole mess of other fancy industry honors. Her success proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that being your own boss makes for better art than being under somebody's thumb ever could. Mariah Darlin started showing a more easygoing side to Everbody. She started going by her nickname, Mimi, kinda like a friendly handshake to let y'all know you were getting the real her. And not just the voice behind them hit songs. Her sit-downs felt full of fun, but she was still sharp as a tack about the dark side of fame she'd lived through. She rounded up a crew that knew where to draw the line and were all headed the same direction. The same gal who once had to hide out in a closet just to make a private call was now calling all her own shots. The whole shebang was complete. She was a whole new woman. Now keeping that success going that takes making smart choices every day. What to sing, who to trust, and when to take a spell. That comeback stuck around because them choices she made were true to the real woman inside, not some made-up image from the dark side of fashion. Her fans could feel it in their bones. Her whole songbook started reaching a whole new batch of youngsters. That tune, All I Want for Christmas Is You, a little ditty she'd cut years before, well, it turned into a holiday tidal wave that just kept on coming. Every single winter, she was an icon like the 90-second supermodels. The irony of it all was just as neat as a pin. A song from back in her controlled days became the anthem for her long-lasting freedom. Every December, families would gather round and meet the tune again, and a whole nother bunch of folks would get to know the gal behind it. What she'd done before kept paying for the future, and that wheel just kept on turning. Nowadays, Mariah Carey stands tall with the music giants, 19 #1 tunes. That's more than any one person, except for the Beatles. Time magazine went and called her one of the world's most influential folks, and the Songwriters Hall of Fame tipped their hats to her work. None of it felt like a sure thing back in them sing years. Back in 2020, she put out The Meaning of Mariah Carey, laying out all the watching and controlling that went on in her marriage. Them stories made all the papers and got folks talking about who holds the reins in show business. Tommy Mottola fessed up to being a bit too heavy-handed, all the while pointing to the career he done helped build. Mariah just let the book do the talking. Folks who read it saw things they recognized. That gaslighting, changing the rules, a kind word that always cost you something. The book put a name to what happens in quiet rooms and held out a hand to other folks feeling the squeeze. Getting out is possible for her fans. The whole story's plain as day. That early grit, doors slammed shut, taking flight, a new voice, and getting back to her old self. For the new folks, it's all about the music first. The story comes later. Her voice made her a big star. Her backbone is what made her last. That Butterfly album and the Emancipation of Mimi. Now those are chapters 'bout bustin' loose. The livin' proof of what happens when real talent ain't fenced in no more. The whole story of Mariah Carey is a simple thing to say but a hard road to travel. You gotta beat the odds, break them chains, and rise on up on your own dang terms. That little songbird that was once caged up became the one telling her own story. That changing over from hostage to hero might just be her biggest hit of all. The path she took reminds all of us that control can sure enough look like someone caring for you, and freedom gets its start with small, stubborn as a mule moves. By telling the God's honest truth and picking her own sound, she turned just getting by into something that'll last forever, leaving behind a map for any soul ready to stake their own claim on life.